I want to make sure that we can use portfolio management in a way to allow us to focus on the most important things. And how do we do prioritization? We'll talk some about that as well. How do we balance our demand against our capacity? How do we think about capacity in an agile world? What does that look like? We want to be adaptive and make sure we can create an organization that's always thinking about how to improve. And I think that's an important part of what we do from an agile perspective. And then something that tends to get left out oftentimes is how do we support governance and corporate audit and security and things like that. In most organizations that we work with, we end up creating it probably most times a three-tiered structure, sometimes a fourth tier. And so we're creating a structure around either products or services. So at this bottom tier, this would represent your Scrum teams, the teams that have backlog. They're accountable for doing their work. They're demonstrating working tests of software frequently. That above them, we often find something called a program team. And when you think about Scrum and you think about the role of a product owner, think about large, complex organizations where you have architectural dependencies, you have organizational dependencies. A single person being able to manage all that becomes very difficult. So we tend to create a structure in organizations where you have, again, a cross-functional team at the program tier that's responsible for creating the clarity in the backlog, also coordinating work across teams. So if we have dependencies from a team perspective or an architectural perspective, for the team to work out those dependencies within a sprint, it's too late, right? We're reactive. So we want to make sure this tier is helping us from that perspective. So when we set up these structures, then we're going to create a governance model that allows us to understand how work flows across that structure. And traditionally, for most delivery teams, we're talking about Scrum. Okay, delivering very frequently, probably every 2 weeks, backlog, working test of software, pretty simple process there. And typically at the program tier and at the portfolio tier, we're thinking more of a Kanban. It's more flow-based. We're thinking about the flow of value through the system. Let's quickly hit metrics. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on metrics today, but I want to make sure you guys have some sense for some of the things that we pay attention to. So from a delivery team level, this is just traditional Agile metrics for the most part. Velocity of the team, their burn down, the depth of the backlog, how deep is it, number of escape defects, their commitment ratio. Yep, we said we're going to do these 10 things, we did those 10 things, 100%. Nope, we only did 50%. It's probably not where we want to be. And then scope change. That never happens, right? Scope doesn't change? Okay, yeah. And then at the program team, we're looking at cycle time. How quickly are we flowing value to our customers and through the system? And we want to reduce that. I don't know if you guys have had any experience with the concept of smaller batches. You know, the smaller your batch, the more throughput you have. You get more flow through the system. And so that's one of the things that we focus on. How often do our teams get blocked? Maybe they're waiting on something. Maybe we didn't plan dependencies appropriately. And that's a responsibility of this program team, is to make sure that we have credible plans that were risk and dependency managed. Okay? Rework defects, of course. And then at the portfolio tier, same thing. You may call them projects today. I'll use a different term here in a moment, but how big are they? Are they 18 months, 12 months, 3 months, a month? And we all know that the smaller they get, the more likelihood we'll be successful, because 18-month projects always come in on their date, right? Okay, time, cost, scope, just the traditional project management stuff that we talk about. And then finally, ROI capitalization. And that one's interesting. Depending upon the organization, we plan these things out and we have a business case maybe, but we don't continue to validate it over time. And the business case may change. So the purpose here is making sure that the thing is coming in, the intake into portfolio aligns with our strategy. The activities are making sure we're validating those to our strategy, making sure they're aligning to our business architecture if you have one. A lot of times we work with organizations and we'll build out what we call a capability model. It's what's the business's capabilities. And so this becomes part of your business architecture to make sure we understand how this thing fits within your current set of capabilities and business architecture. And a lot of times you'll use that to do an impact analysis. And then defer epics that are clearly not aligned to strategy. If it's not aligned to strategy, we may push it off lower in the stack, or it may be something we're not going to do. it's okay to just take things off the list. So we want to make sure that we validate what we're doing from a business perspective, also the viability of it. Can we actually solve this problem? Well, you know, this epic is we're going to build hovercraft, and we haven't determined how to counteract gravity, so I don't think that's viable, right? We can't do that. Figuring this stuff out sprint by sprint, it's too late, right? We need to do this well in advance. And maybe a technical impact assessment. So if you have a business architecture, how is this going to impact your platform? So there's a couple of techniques I want to talk about, and I'm going to go through an example here from a road mapping perspective that uses this technique. Moscow. Must have, should have, could have, and would have. It's been around forever. The other thing I want to talk about is cost of delay. How many of you understand this concept of cost of delay? Yeah. So cost of delay is, while we're working on it, it's not out there in the market generating revenue. And Reinerson will say, if you only measure one thing, measure cost of delay. And so the setup for this example I'm going to show you is we have feature A, it'll take 3 weeks to do, the value is $3,000, right? The cost of delay calculated is 1. So we have value B, or feature B, 4 weeks, $7,000. Cost of delay is 1.75. C, 6 weeks, 9,000. And so a lot of times what you mostly see is this has the highest value. So most companies might choose to do that first. But that might not be the most appropriate way of doing this. So you can do no priority at all. And so your cost of delay means we're doing it this way, so we don't get anything out until the end, right? So it's every week that we're not in market, we're losing $19,000 because it's not out yet. Shortest job first, so coming back to do this one first, then this one, and then this one. So the total cost of delay is $175,000, because as soon as we get feature A out, we're no longer, $19,000 a week, we're less than that, right? We've got money that's being generated at this point. Do the most valuable first, so that's do this one, do this one, do this one. So that's this picture. We have a cost of delay of $187,000. Or we can use the cost of delay calculation. So do weighted shortest job first. And so if we do that, the total cost of delay is $157,000. We can't eliminate it, but we're actually doing it in an order that allows us to maximize the amount of revenue that we can collect at that point in time. Let's talk about this example of doing some planning some number of quarters ahead. And so we're going to talk about epics and things that are on the roadmap. So these are closer to us. They have a little more clarity than the things that are farther out. And so this is just one way you could do this. And this is something one of my colleagues brought to my attention. So you can do this kind of thing. Must-haves, should have, could have, wish to have. These are farther out. We wish to have these things, but we haven't made a commitment. For the next 2 quarters, we probably have a lot of detail, and we can be very prescriptive and make a commitment to our customers and the market. We know a lot about it. Things that are further out. So do you think at this point we should make commitments to our wish to haves? No, let's don't do that. Okay, we don't have enough detail yet, and things could change. Can we make a commitment to the could haves? I would say no, yeah. But we can make a commitment to the shoulds and musts, right? And then new things are going to come in, right? Realign this to make sure it reflects what we think reality is. So we've kind of reallocated this based upon what we know. We're going to focus on, these things up here. What if we finish early? So we had this stuff here. We software development, we finish early all the time, right? Yeah. So we finish early. What do? Well, let's finish the roadmap. Let's pull things in. And maybe there's some new things that come in. So we've got these new must-haves that come in, and maybe we want to pull these over because the wish-to-haves, we don't have enough detail. So it's just a quick mechanism for visualizing the work in the backlog from a portfolio management standpoint and how we can prioritize those.